Just bore a hole in the ice and watch them put the line down, find the depth, set the line to the right depth, put the bait on and put it back down and hook the tip up and wait for the fish.
Every day we were there, every day after school, weekends. Those kids got to calling each other river rats after a while.
As you can see, there is a lot of ice on the river, and that means ice fishing for some people around here. And we're going to be doing that today with Harold Peterson. He'll be fishing on the Esopus. And we're going to go back to the 1930s with Rodney S. Williams Sr., and he's going to remember his days in New Baltimore in old photographs when we come back right here on the river. The Hudson River, a waterway now of solid ice in many places, creating a perfect environment for ice fishing. Harold Peterson of Saugerties is among others in the valley who get up early and hope for a catch on the Esopus Creek tributary. Harold says he's been ice fishing since he was 14 years old.
I've been ice fishing since 1944. I have fished in Wisconsin. Of course, I was born in Wisconsin. I've done a lot of fishing there. There's a lot of lakes there to fish on. I've been fishing ever since I've been in New York. I have fished ice fishing and from shore, out of boats. The ice fishing is a great sport. You can get around without a boat. You can go where you want to go.
There are a variety of fish to catch from the river.
In here they catch perch. Bass is illegal. They catch trout. Trout you can keep in these waters, I understand. They do catch pickerel occasionally. I would say in the winter the perch is the biggest thing that they catch down here in the creek.
But the fish population has decreased over the years.
I'd say the fishing is getting worse now than it was then with the acid rains. Fishing is not like it used to be. It's not as good as it used to be. They're not as plentiful as they used to be, the fish.
And we're told the thickness of the ice should not be the deciding factor when testing if it's safe or not.
The ice, if it's good black ice, you can come out on 3 inches. I'm sure 2 would be enough, but 3 for sure. The old rule of thumb always was 4 inches of ice would carry a team of horses. They've always said that years ago when they used to cut ice on these waters. They used to use the ice to put in ice houses. That's how they had the ice for the summer years ago. And they used to haul the ice off the river with horses way back when they had to do it that way. I would say there's probably 8 to 10 inches here now. Plenty of ice. Very safe.
The weather plays an important role with the sport. This year, a late start because of it.
Some years you can start in November if the weather's right and it makes ice that quick. You can go on till March. You have to be careful in the spring. If you have a lot of warm weather, the ice will start to get honeycombed and soft, and then you have danger of going through. You could, hit a soft spot and go through and drown. I'd say till the middle of March, depending on weather. You have to depend on the temperatures. The elements has a lot to do with it.
The time of day to begin ice fishing varies depending on the type of fish one is trying to catch.
We were here this morning at 7:30, 8 o'clock. Perch usually, they'll bite off and on all day long. They're a school fish. They travel in schools. If I were fishing pickerel, then I would have to tell you that they bite the better in the morning, and then they bite again good in the afternoon, say from 3 till dark. Perch, I would say, goes all day long. They'll come through in schools. You'll hit them all day long in different places as they come through.
Harold tells us he tends bar at the Blue Flame restaurant during the week, where many a fishing story is told.
Well, I was fishing with a fellow one time, and the fish wasn't biting too good. and he said, gee, I feel kind of cold. He says, I think I'll have a little drink. So he went over and he grabbed his bottle and he had a little drink out of it, and he said, maybe that fish needs a little help too. So he pulled the bait up out of the water and he poured a little of that alcohol in the fish's mouth, and he dropped it back down. And it wasn't but about 4 or 5 minutes later, and he got a flag. And he went over there and he pulled that line up out of the water, and that bait had a 5-pound bass right by the back. And he said, see, Harold, that alcohol is good for more than drinking. That was one of them we used to tell. And another one we used to tell was a fellow was out fishing, and he said he had caught a lot of small fish, and then he said along in the afternoon I got a hold of a real big one, and he said, I really don't know how much the fish weighed, but he said the picture weighed 7 pounds.
And how long does it take to learn how to ice fish?
Not really that long. All you have to do is go along with somebody once, and if you watch, you've got to catch on. Just bore a hole in the ice and watch them put the line down, find the depth, set the line to the right depth, put the bait on and put it back down and hook the tip up and wait for the fish.
In order to bore a hole through the ice, a special drill is needed.
I have a power ice auger for boring a hole in the ice. Years ago it was done with a hand auger. Then as we progressed on, we now use power augers. It's much easier when the ice is real thick. Today the ice is 8 to 10 inches thick. It's not that all important, but it helps a lot. I can bore 34 inches without an extension, the way the auger is right now. I've never had to put an extension on it. I've never fished where the ice has been that thick. But if need be, you can take this nut and bolt off here, and you can put another extension on if you need more, 4 to 5 feet of ice. I don't think I'll ever fish where it's that thick.
And are the hand-powered augers still used today?
Sure they are. They're used a lot. Sure, as a matter of fact, they have an ice bar laying over here now that they're using out here today, using in the holes where they used it a day or two ago and the ice didn't get that thick before. And they also use it where there's never been a hole before. It just takes a little longer, a little work.
When fishing near the river, Harold says there are a certain amount of holes that one is allowed to make.
You're allowed 5 for each person. If you're fishing with tip-ups, you're allowed 5 holes. They bore a lot of holes out around here because perch are school fish, and they go all different places. So therefore, you bore a lot of holes in the ice, and you keep going from one to the other till you find where they're at. And then you jig them up, and then when they stop biting, you usually go around and try to find them again, where they might be in a school, and then start fishing them out again. And this you do all day long, till you get yourself a mess of fish of what you want, or till you're cold or hungry, ready to go home.
Now we get Harold to demonstrate how to use an ice auger.
That didn't take long.
After a hole is bored, there are 2 methods used to catch fish. Harold will simulate catching a fish with a jigging pole.
And first you use the bait here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but we have small minnows here in the bucket. And you put on a small minnow on the line. And you put the line down. And you jig with it. And then it goes down. You lay it down, you pull, And there's the perch. Nice size one too. You get another bait, you put the bait on the hook, and you put it back down the hole. Like this. We have a cork on it, and we'll lay it down on the ice and wait till it starts to bite again.
Another piece of equipment used in ice fishing is a tip-up.
You get your line up here. You found the depth with a depth finder. Now we got to put the bait on. And then we'll lower it down in the water. Get ready to catch another fish. This is for yellow perch. We put the hook through the back part, up in the back. And put it down in the water. About a foot from the bottom. We set the flag. And then we wait for another flag.
Two of Harold's friends also fish down here, Bob Farrell and Billy Mergendahl. They grew up in Saugerties and they're commercial shad fishermen. In the winter, they ice fish for the fun of it. Billy says the tides have a big effect on the ice freezing.
What happened this year, we had the big snowstorm, and the snow got on the top of the water, and that's what froze to give us ice to start fishing with. Otherwise, we didn't get on the ice this year until
Was late.
must have been the 20th or 25th of January this year before we got to go fishing. So, like I said, last year we was fishing before
Christmas.
Before Christmas. We was down here having a good time. And we'll fish now probably about, usually around the 15th, 18th of March and count on the ice leaving the creek.
Then we fish up around the corner when the ice leaves for smelts.
We go up Scap for smelts.
And they tell us the fish taste great from the river. Bob says sometimes he catches so many, he has to give them away.
The yellow perch we catch, we fillet them, and either that or we just skin them, we fry them up. We fillet them and skin them and boil them in the water a little bit. It makes like a poor man's shrimp. You put them in hot sauce and or melted butter, and they're very good.
I just donated about 50 fish up to the VFW last weekend, and they had a little fish fry with them. I had over 100 Friday in about 6 hours.
Yellow perch are a funny thing. You have a hole 3 foot from one spot, and you won't catch anything. You go over there, cut another hole 3 foot, and you'll get a mess of fish out of one hole, and the other holes won't do anything because they're a school fish. And if you get on the school, then you have a lot of fun.
Yep.
Now last year we done very well before they brought the icebreaker in, because we started fishing last year just before Christmas so we could get on the creek. And we was fishing out past the Coast Guard dock, and we done very good out there. We get 70, 80 every time we went out.
But why is the sport of ice fishing so appealing?
Just enjoy fishing. You're down here, and you don't have a clock to watch or somebody
Telephone to answer. You're just down here relaxing.
As for the future of ice fishing on the river, these two natives who've been fishing ever since they were 5 years old say they're very optimistic.
Well, I think it's going to come back to getting the river cleaned up a lot more than it was before, and don't seem to be as much pollution because they're getting all the septic tanks taken up from along, and they're stopping the ships from pumping their bilges and things like that. It's more control than it was years ago, and I think that's why the fishing's improving. It'll take a few years to get it straightened out again for the damage that was done, but I believe it'll come back.
being as we're commercial fishermen, they send us brochures in the mail stating when they're going to have meetings on how they want to clean up the PCBs from the river, such as dredging, hydraulic dredging, and a couple other alternatives to how to get the PCBs out, which one will work better, and we can go to a meeting and have our say about which we feel would be better.
Harold says ice fishing is a great sport, enjoyed by many in the Hudson River Valley, and one that he will enjoy always.
I'm looking forward to a lot more years of ice fishing. If my health holds up and I can take the cold, I'd like to do it till I'm all done.
Now let's sit back and relax as we take you back to the 1930s with some photographs that belong to Rodney S. Williams, Sr. Rodney grew up on the river in New Baltimore, New York, where he acquired some cherished memories.
We had a rowboat, and we used to go out way out in the middle and try to meet the bigger boats when they were coming up and down the river. And, you know, we almost like you play chicken with them almost. You go out as close as you could, you know. And we swam a lot. And then in the summertime, that was. And but the wintertime, we had great times too. Because I remember the ice used to be at least 13 inches thick in them days. And the icebreakers used to come up and they would get stuck. And the freighters would get stuck and the icebreaker would come up and try to get them out and get stuck. And I remember one time this freighter was stuck in the ice. We used to go out and put our hand right on the side. That's how thick the ice was. You wasn't worried about going through the ice. And then other times, people would bring the cars out on the ice and go up and down the, you know, the river a little ways and jam on their brakes and skid around, you know, fooling around, you know, out there. And then we used to skate as far as we could up the river against the wind, because there was always mostly a north wind blowing. And we'd get up there and we'd open our coats and go down the river like a sailing, you know, about 4 or 5 miles down the river. Then you'd have to skate back against the heavy wind again. That was great times.
In the 30s, when Rodney was 10 years old, he used to catch channel eels in the river.
In them days, they didn't worry about pollution or anything like that. And, you know, we used to fish a lot in the river. And I caught mostly perch and eels. I remember nights we used to go out in the middle of the night after eels and in a rowboat, and that was when you get these big channel eels. There were big channel eels, and we used to take cheesecloth and put fish worms in the cheesecloth and drop it down, and somehow the eels knew that the fish worms were in there, and then when they grabbed that, it'd be in there, you know, inside them. You'd pull it up, and there you have great big channel eels. That's one way of catching eels.
When Rodney was a young boy, he used to visit his grandmother, who also lived on the river in New Baltimore. They used to sit and watch the steamboats go by.
This one here was in the 30s. It's a picture of the boatyard in Alexander Hamilton going up the river. And this is my grandmother's front yard looking out on the river. And that's one picture there, and that's an old dredger. They used to, you know, take up the sand out of the bottom of the river. It was up on dry dock there in that picture. This other picture, that's another picture of the Alexander Hamilton going up the river, looking out from our yard also, through the boatyard. Here's another one looking, this is a nice picture, 1937, this was taken, of a stone barge tied up to the dock there. And there's, they call them waves, where they brought the boats up on when they wanted to repair them. In them days, the boats were made out of heavy wood. And when they started making steel barges, these were no longer needed. and the boatyard went out of business. And it just laid there and went decay, you know. And now here's another picture taken of the Alexander Hamilton, I think it was, looking out from our yard. And here's another one, a picture of where we called the town dock, actually it was, where you could drive down with your cars right up close to the river and everything. And that's another nice picture of Alexander Hamilton there going up to Albany. That was a great thing, you know, people, they want to go up to Albany to get on the boat and take a trip all the way to West Point, or in them days, I think they went from New York to Albany and back. And they had night boats too. Those same boats would go up at night. You'd take a night excursion, you know, with all the lights on the boat and have a band on there and all that sort of thing. And I never went on those, but I went in the daytime in the Robert Fulton, I remember. I think this was the Robert Fulton in around 1930s too, going by the town. Every day we know when the boat was coming by, you'd be down on the dock waiting for it to come by, you know, you wave at the people as they go by. Oh yeah. Here's a cargo freighter going down the river. This one was empty. I think it unloaded already in Albany. It was on its way back to New York or so, or wherever it was going by our town dock. And then now we're coming to 1938 or 39, some movie company came up in New York City and they wanted to take these scenes of, just the scenes of people on the land waving at these sailboats they had out on the river, because they were going to make a movie on, I think it was called Little Old New York, but I never seen it myself. And they took the shots from this yacht here that you see in this picture of the people on the river, on the river's waterfront. Here's a picture of the sailboats that they had hired to go up and down the river just for the movie scene, you know. And I'm out here in this rowboat. My uncle's in the other one, just rolling around, you know. So we get in the picture.
And Rodney says he wouldn't change those days for anything.
A lot of fun. Sure, it was fun. Just to be on the river was fun. Yeah. And here's a picture of some more sailboats. And we're out there in our rowboat. And here's another snapshot of that small yacht that they were taking the pictures from, the movie, of the waterfront there. And this would be another one of those sailboats that was in that movie scene.
And Rodney learned to swim in the river.
Now here's the raft that we swam off of most of the time. And that's me laying right there on the raft. I think that's me. It looks like it anyway. And that one there. Oh, we had some great times. In fact, that's where I learned to swim. You either learn to swim or sink. And, you know, you push you in, you had to swim or else.
In the 30s, all types of boats were on the river.
You had river boats going up, freighters and tugs. Like, here's a picture of one right here. It had something to do with that movie scene they were shooting. There were some of the people. Well, they had those long dresses and the big round brim hats they wore in gay 90s, I think, you know. That's what the era was supposed to be about when they were shooting that picture, them scenes. They just want to take those scenes and then, I suppose, you know, put them in that movie, whatever they were going to make with it.
Rodney says the steamboats used to be packed with passengers.
Now, here's a picture. I don't know if anybody ever saw that before. Peter Stuyvesant. That was a smaller boat than the Alexander Hamilton and the Robert Fulton. But in them days, people rode those boats a lot for excursions up and down the river. That was a big thing in them days, you know. Some days, them boats used to be full of people. You used to see them hanging over the rails, so many people on the boats. You don't see that today. This one's the Robert Fulton here. That's a good picture of it, too. Yeah, you can see how big it is by looking at it. It's a pretty long boat. I don't know the actual length of it. There's another good picture of it from our town dock. Yeah. And there's another one, mostly Robert Fulton. That was a pretty big boat, that was.
The river played an important part in Rodney's everyday routine in those days.
Every day we were there, every day, after school, weekends. Those kids got to calling each other river rats after a while. We was in the water so much. Yep.
Rodney has since moved from New Baltimore to Hyde Park. He says he and Mrs. Williams may move back to the river in the future. In the meantime, Rodney will always have his memories of previous times spent on the river.
Living along the river. If you feel like taking a boat, you go up, row around, jump in the water, push each other under. In fact, one time we had a beach just up a little ways from the town, and we were all swimming there one day, and I got out too far on the raft I was swimming in, and I got tired and I couldn't make it. And I almost drowned. I went under. My uncle came out quick, and he's trying to pull me under, and he's pushing me under, trying to keep himself up. I took in more water that day than I ever had in my life, but I survived.
And fortunately for all of us, Rodney survived, and we got to see some of the old pictures that took us back into the 1930s when Rodney was having some fun right here along the river. Again, thank you for joining us on the river.